even more on them. I see your messages. I do see your charts as well from various platforms as you send them in. Okay, so that would be great to be able to keep up with them as you send them in. And yes, we're streaming live right now on Facebook and on YouTube. So you want to join in and get your viewpoints on some of those talking, discussions that we're carrying on right now. That'll be great to have them join, have them in. But before we do that, I almost missed out on doing the lead this very morning, and it's very, very interesting. But let me take some moment to reflect on what the chairman of ECOWAS, the president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has been talking about since the coup did take place in the Niger Republic. Here's what he thinks of the situation and how no intervention should be done, even though the military junta in that particular country says they will resist any form of military intervention carried out by ECOWAS or any of the other groups around the world. And President Tinubu did take calls from the EU, from the Secretary of State to the US as well, the US Secretary of State, and some few other top figures on how things did go. And also through the weekend as well, we saw Vice President Shetima have a handshake across the world with Russia President Vladimir Putin just to get how things will go. And it looks like that may be a good deal for Africa down the line. But let's listen for a moment to what President Tinubu said about the situation arising in the Niger Republic and his viewpoints on them.
This is Morning Crossfire.
For me to have you here because you accepted my invitation to be here despite the short notice I was given to you. Some people were far up in the east, and especially those who travel 8-9 hours to be here. I thank all of you for honoring this emergency. It shouldn't have been so. If not for extraordinary summit that is necessary to address the situation that we have in the Niger Republic, threatening our authority, and a very devoted member of this union. Great thanks to African Union and other international observers. We can't pretend that we didn't have the knowledge of what had happened and what is still happening. We have an hostage situation, an interruption to properly elected government of the Niger Republic. Your presence here reflects your commitment to democracy, principle, and value. I appreciate that. It is a very challenging time for us, and it is time that we must demonstrate our commitment to a sustainable fact clearly open to us, that without freedom and democracy, there can be no development. There can be no end to poverty. The danger to us right now is the fact that one of us, His Excellency Mohamed Bazoum, is in hostage by his own army. the presidential guard. What a calamity. It's an assault on every one of us. And we must take a very strong action. We want to protect the life of Bazoum, President Bazoum. Disrupting the democratic order has left the people of Niger in a state of uncertainty and vulnerability. But we have to face the challenge that we have right now. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, during the 63rd Ordinary Summit, the authorities set up a troika, comprising some of us to deepen reflections on security matters in the region and to accompany ECOWAS mediators. We'll be discussing other details. But just let's cast our mind back. On this assault, I've briefed some of you about the actions that I've taken. I'm prepared to abide by all resolution necessary to respond to this assault and to make sure that our colleague, the President, Bazoum, is safe, and that democracy is restored in Niger Republic. Whether we call it constructive dialogue or otherwise, whatever you and I resolve, we make or mar our democratic credentials. I want us to be strong, forceful, and resolute about the survivor of Bazoum, as well as the freedom and restoration of the constitutionally elected body in the Niger Republic. I want to say welcome and thank you very much. But no more time for us to sign a warning signals. It's time for action, and we should walk our talks.
This is Morning Crossfire.
Let's walk our talk, okay? That's the position of the ECOWAS chairman and also the president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, with regards to the situation there and there. And it's an interesting time that we see, him making those comments. There were other comments, of course, made by other leaders in the room across Africa. But here's something that is very vital. And one of the reasons why State committed to playing that, and I will ask you this, because a lot of people are comparing and contrasting what can it be if you have a little bit of this, a little bit of that. The military are good with this, they are not good with that. They are good with that, they are not good with this. And some say, okay, we can't even remember the last time democracy was good with almost anything, some people would say. But I also see this as an opportunity to ask the very cogent questions about democratic leaders across Africa. Maybe it's the time for the wake-up call. When you're not serving your people right and somebody out there thinks differently about what you're doing, it brings about all kinds of machinations, and people start to gravitate towards ideas and start to say, well, we are together on this, we are against this. Hunger is uniting people. Hunger is making people think differently. Hunger is inspiring so much desperation, if I would say. And I ask, what would be the response of a responsible leader, if I would say, to a situation where your neighbors are experiencing problem here, and there are other neighbors also experiencing a problem? Is it not time to make sure that some of the things we talk about that we want to do in democracy are done? Well, let's find out from you after the break. This is Morning Crossfire with Femi Live.
Informative, exciting.
This is Nigeria Info.
Audio Jungle.
Nothing breaks the news like the news. Trust me, I can prove it. I do it every morning on Morning Crossfire from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Nigeria Info 95.1, and I'm Femi D. Amede. Join the biggest conversation around national politics every day in a way that is trustworthy, full of passion, and yes, covers the biggest politics and the stories that matter to you. See, you have all the reasons to find out what's going on in Nigeria and be engaged differently. Let's talk. That's the way to go, even this morning.
This is Nigeria Info.
Nigeria Info.
This is Nigeria Info. This is Nigeria Info.
Info.
Are you a paramilitary officer in need of some extra cash? Look no further.
This is Nigeria Info.
Nigeria Info.
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 This is Nigeria Info.
Police Divisional Headquarters and adjacent to Commercial Bank. With
This is Nigeria Info.
Nigeria Info.
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 This is Nigeria Info. This is Nigeria Info.
Nigeria Info.
This is Nigeria Info.
Nigeria Info.
This is Nigeria Info.
Nigeria Info.
This is Nigeria. This is Nigeria.
Here for you, and as we continue our conversation on everything. And by the way, if I get the chance, I'd like to share with you a little bit of what's going on in Adamawa State. The governor there was explaining that the led to the arrest. Two were, according to one in the state capital of the other in the outskirts as well, attacked and arrested take place. And I think the big fear in the picture now is, would there be arrests in parts of the country if governors stand in to intervene at the state level? Very one expecting that the federal government is still trying to together what would be a plan for the issue around petrol subsidy would make life supposedly close to better. But if the federal is taking its time, the state governors have to put the situation in the right and that it can, if things will go way sustainably close to right. Don't miss out on the fact that a similar experience 3 years ago felt they could not sustain their leave during the 2020 COVID-19 lockdown. A process felt the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari did not do anything for people during the period which they could not work, were locked in. People were hungry and dying, and they resorted to self-help in states across the country to keep things. But if I can tell, it will lead you. But let me also still mention about the coup in Niger report and what is building up into. Much of the report, let me build up a report. The ECOWAS, I mean, the 8-member countries, at least 8 countries were around to talk about what on Niger. And let me read this. It talks about West African nations imposing and threatening force on Sunday. Niger coup leaders failed to oust President Bazoum in a week. That's 7 days old now. And they are asking the support of the junta attack that attacked Basi in the state capital. Now, the 15-nation ECOWAS response to the 7 coup in the region, okay, in West. I mean, in the region, we've had 7 among the nations. At some point, 15. We've had 7 rather in this arena. There was much about the burning of French flags and other power missions, and there was from police and kinds of things addicting that area. Now, what the ECOWAS team under the chairperson of Balambo was to use force if necessary, and they're giving them 7 days to back from what they have gone on to. We have a situation where there's going to be a border closure against Niger, commercial ban, financial transaction halted, national assets froze, and aid ended. Now, somebody did put up a tweet that made me worry a little bit this morning. I was reading. Somebody said, how does Nigeria help out with flag on Niger, considering the fact that we are struggling with a ban for a state? I mean, that's the body of it. That's what it really implied. And said to think about it and said, well, also have our own military dealings military action to deal with here to see how things will go. And there was much talk about it. By the way, somebody has volunteered to speak to a good number of the guys who undertaken this coup. It's charted. He also did come into power through coup, in case you're wondering. But he's here to speak to them about President Mahamat Idris Deby. He did come into power in 2021 and he has volunteered to speak to them to go back before the 7-day period and then have ECOWAS take some measure of action against him in some light. There were all kinds of were being said along the lines of that. It leaves you with so much to this. Touching on the international scene, Japan has lost a good number of its population last year. When I do mean the population declined in Japan last year. 800,000 people declined by at least 800,000. The number of the population was not so as one could imagine it being in some respect of that. Talk about Adamawa State briefly, and now after this I'll take on the course. There's a lot I wanted to with you, including the response of government who has called on Simon Ekpa to say, hey, you don't just make your speeches in Finland and sit at home with us. Okay, that's something that was said by Governor Omar with regards to Simon Ekpa and City. There's also talks about whether Tanu has asked that City in the Southeast come to an end. I don't know, can't verify that, but there are talks about that out in the news day by day. Now, of Israel would have to be that Governor Fuba River State, as well as speak with regards to non-state actors and the activities in Nigeria, like River State, and some believe that which was targeted as such as I'm trying to remember his name now. Oh my day! I'm seeing his face just to come to my head, but there's been talk about his own sense of he wants to do. No, in terms of that, yes, that's the name I'm looking for. As regards what he wants to do on that, talks about that as well. So it lives to look forward to. Juzo Kalu also gives reason why there any offer of ministerial appointment in some measure. I mean, these are things I'll look at. But let me jump into what the Deputy of Adamawa State explained as what happened in the state and why 24-hour curfew cop the activities in this arena. Take a listen to a little bit of how explain the situation.
Well, it's actually the state capital, even though we have one other local government. That one of the very close local government state capital. Hoodlums broke into the government stores and warehouses and went with some of the items that are sold. So for now, we have warehouses in Yola and in Numan that were broken into. From they drilled on the walls of the warehouse and gained entrance, not breaking the doors of the warehouses.
All right, so that provided a perspective. She was speaking on Channels TV yesterday just to provide to what in terms of that. Nigeria Senate is saying residents to call off their strike. In fact, the doctors to call off their strike. Do you know they can to provide perspective to that? One more thing I mention would have to be Vice President Shetima Richard. I believe he's back, yeah? Anyway, part of his engagement was to speak to Russian president, and even it looks like things are going fine between Nigeria. If we follow through with tenets of the Vice President Shetima, he was on with the African Summit, Russian African Summit, right? That did take recently. He's speaking of the revival of Ajakuta Steel as well, something that the predecessor Muhammadu Buhari and Yemi Oshibajo they promised, but could not pull that together. The refineries they talked about that they could not. Who knows what will be done under the administration of Bola Ahmed as we have it. Okay, let's move in a direction where we'll get to listen to you. The lines are 0700-9100. If you're on Facebook, by the way, I'm on Facebook right now on Nigeria Info Abuja. So go also read your comments from there. The social media platforms at Femi Live. If you're willing to come on board to chit chat on social media, I'm there at Instagram, Twitter, and the likes of it. Good morning to you.
Good morning, my brother. How morning, Femi?
Yes, good morning.
Thank you. My name is Brighton.
Good to have you on, sir.
Yes, I have much to say. But the risk of repeating what people have said, I still want to talk about the coup in the Niger Republic. I listened to the president, and I heard all he said. You see, Femi, I understand, and I understand what you are trying to people know. Ordinarily, the worst development is better than the military regime rather. But in this part of the world, why is it that we borrow democracy, but we don't borrow the act that should go with that democracy?
Yes.
All over the world, democracy, if America is going to do something today, and if Americans are saying, no, we want this, then listen to them. But with us in Africa, it's who are you? Who are you? We do what we want to do. I'll give you an example, Femi. Your station has been very instrumental, people, voicing their feelings. This ministerial list was sent to the Senate. Anybody who listens to Nigeria Info and is a Nigerian would have known that Nigerians are saying it is better for you to send their list with their portfolios at.
Yes.
Nobody will tell not aware of it because Nigeria Info and other radio stations are also doing. But in the end, we said all we wanted to, they went ahead to do what feel they should do. Because the beginning point is superior to ours. They still went ahead to do. In times, it doesn't happen like that. Like somebody said, it's burning our airtime, and they are continuing to do what they like doing. Why is it like that? Femi, I've had the privilege of going to so many in the world. I know whenever I meet our Nigerians, how obedient the full transport, all of the same public transport, like if you go to Switzerland, if you go to UK, if you go everywhere, I deal with them, and all of us use this to travel. But come to Nigeria here, no, they want to do what they want to do.
I've got to plead with you because of time. At least take one more call, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
To you. And he makes it very brilliant. So why is it that we don't copy the aristocracy? And why is it that when we choose who leads us, look like what we say we want? I don't know how to explain it. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Femi.
Yes, good morning to you, sir.
My name is Salat I agreed the last brilliant contribution, sir.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the protest in the north. You know what prompted this product? The high cost of the living. Now they are taking off. I know you've been in the north before.
Yes.
This corn and millet, the component zero,
Mm.
it has gone high. The food high cost of the living has gone high. Now, as I always say, it's the hardship that unites in Nigeria. That hardship, if you go to a political party, which really was, the price is for everyone to purchase. So government, something needs to be done. And most people are in internet places. People can't go to farm anymore. So the insecurity, I think the issue of it needs to be addressed. Now, go there.
For your view to this conversation as well. All right. Well, still more calls, okay? Let's listen to you. Oh, there. What am I missing? Oh, yes. Okay. I have it now. Good morning. Yes, good morning.
From Nyanya. Can you hear me?
Yes. Your name again, please.
My name is Chidi. I'm calling from Nyanya.
Chidi. Yes.
Please, I'd like to this QJ and the military rule compare the civilian administration. When we keep the worst military, with the worst civilian administration and the military regime, I think I beg to disagree. It depends. It depends on the everything depends on how the government affects the people. If the people are better off with the regime, you can't tell those people that a civilian administration not help them out is better. For instance, they say any government that the life and property of citizens has no business in government, and we have successive civilian administration fail in securing the life of the citizens. How can such administration is better than military? Yes, we know the military regime has its disadvantages, but you can't tell that word that the best military regime is better than it doesn't make sense to when you use the word worst. It means the civilian administration is worst. They have not delivered any dividend of democracy to people.
Interesting view.
The only difference between MB and civilian is the rule of the military rule by why the civilian rule by the rule of law.
Do you want to explain? Do you want to explain? Hold on for a moment. Do you want to explain what rule by decree means? I know what it means, but I want to understand viewpoint. I mean, just to understand what does rule by decree?
Decree by the military fiat. They do with what they think is good for people, and they will implement it.
Tell me one decree call that's good for the people. And this is I'm asking this the most. Let me pretend I'm quiet, okay? So just tell me one decree you under the military that's good for the people.
I don't remember them one by one, but I can them by their
yes. Okay. Go on. Yes, their nomenclature. Yes, go on. Good.
Do you understand me? At least I was. Listen, one of my President Muhammadu Buhari had a measure of support when he was.
Hold on for a moment. I say you. I mean, it's fine for you not to remember what any of the decrees is, but tell me one that you feel at one point in time was good enough for the just a feeling around it. Yeah.
Let me remember Abacha.
Okay.
You remember when the time of Abacha, Nigeria was placed under some by the international community from left, right, and center. And Abacha decided to close our international community.
Yes.
He pegged our rate at 22 naira, if you remember very well.
Mm-hmm.
And that helped us so much to look inward. Close our door to the international. And as at that time, are you
yes, I'm with you.
So at that time, we will see what we can do for ourselves. Exchange rate remained at 22 naira for a very long time.
But I guess we won't be talking about you. Maybe that didn't happen to you.
Oh, I just add that they have their own disadvantages.
Okay.
I'm not saying that the military is okay. It's outdated. There's no doubt. When you use the phrase military civilian, this is what the politicians use in check so that we'll continue to support them with their rascality in government.
I strongly agree with you. I strongly agree with you in terms of how, I mean, sometimes when you think how effective or the effectiveness of democracy has been in Nigeria, you feel that there's inside you, like we say for those who like inside this avian, there's another avian, which literally means inside the worst of the situation. You think that you've seen the worst of it, so else comes around and even does forgive me and don't let your children say this. Okay, don't let your children say worst, but don't let them say and when I worst of the worst situations, somebody goes really bad in area and does really bad in some other area, and it leaves a bad taste in your mouth to wonder about what are we doing with that democracy. And truth, and I will say this to you, I pressure we should put into what democracy could be for Nigeria as we have it now. As again, military is an option. I'm already practicing one. Would you say because you be eating rice every day of the week to Friday that you have rice? Let's go and throw away all the rice where we see beans. Is to understand white rice, jollof rice, shinkafa rice, all kinds of you can make, and then look for the other things that can supposedly suffice. So I should put pressure on what democracy could do to Nigerians against the other way. So if what we have dealt the worst of how it is prefer of the worst of the avians, then we should actually put pressure for them to.
Yes, if I borrow your analogy, if I am eating rice and I'm eating a rotten rice, if it is a rotten rice, I can't add that rice. I will look for option if option is not good enough. And because this one, that's why they say the devil is better than the angel you know. If I eat rice and the rice is soured rice, I can't keep eating. I will look for something else. That's something, whether it is good or bad, until I taste. Do you understand me?
The problem with the devil, the problem with is that if you know the devil, will you still be alive to know get to know the angel? I'm just saying.
I don't know the angel until the angel. I will know that this angel is or good. And that's the devil I have told is bad. Okay. Do you understand me? And
that's the bit we're trying to do every day. And I want the truth, let me assure you, and for somebody called and asked this, I assure you, now leaders are listening. But what used to do the things we talk about, another ball game.
My dear brother, sorry to disagree. These people, I don't give you any listening here.
Trust me.
Listen. They believe Nigerians have been conquered.
My brother, just take it from me. Take it from me because I do know some of them are listening themselves. They chose whether they will now do what Nigerians want them to. It's where the problem has lied because of selfish interest. Okay, if it's about that, vines of people call somebody to know about to talk to me about something, they are listening in. Even the senators, or the House of Reps, they are listening.
Is there anything to show that listening? Do we have anything to show?
On that point, and that's the point I'm making to you. Some of these men are stubborn, and I'm not exempted of women. Some of these are stubborn. Okay, let's leave that down with you so that we can round up the show. Okay, thank you for your time. Interesting debate. Just there with my friend, I think it's Chidiberry. Yeah. Okay. But coming up later on today, and I think you should get to listen to this. The ministerial nominees, and I think a batch would be stepping into the chamber of the Senate today. They'll be facing their screening exercise. They'll release pretty much, I think, and the screening starts off today. It will be, and thought of the senators listening, and I'm saying this, if you can't do it at all, respect now by not allowing everybody to do bowing. Allow them to answer questions, what's in their head, about what they want to do. If they are aware of the what they've been given, or if they want to speak to them in some certain areas, allow them to. Please don't do us the disrespect of bow and go. It's good to have with senators and to respect the fact recognize a colleague, but don't do bow and go. It's disrespect Nigerians at this very critical time. Go. Thank you so much for today. I'm Femi, and that's it on Morning Crossfire. God bless you. Enjoy the rest of your day. And remember to watch the ministerial.
Seller, creator, or trader.